Okay. Boy, I was trying to think of what I would do for crowd control, but I don't need to do anything. Welcome. I'll hold my full litany of thank yous for tomorrow, but today I would like to say, with Thanksgiving in mind, and in other places, that this conference is a little like Thanksgiving Day. And what I really mean by that is it's the occasion. It's not the thing itself. Another way of putting it would be to say that it's more like the table than the meal. What really matters is what you bring to it and what you get from it. And so I do want to give a special thank you to all of the presenters and all of the attendees, and that's an occasion, by the way, for you to give yourselves a hand. Thank you for coming. You're the people who make the conference. And now, descending from that high note, I'm going to get dark on you for a minute. Having done this for 14 years and having talked about change for so long, I think it's fair to wonder, and I'm not sure if I'm quoting or paraphrasing the only famous quotation attributed to President Millard Fillmore, you should not confuse change with progress. We have talked a lot about change, and yet there's a good reason to ask ourselves, are we really moving forward? And if we are, how do we know? It's sort of assumed and accepted that change is the new constant, even though that's kind of oxymoronic, that it's something that we must get used to and adapt to, but is it really moving us forward? We're rightly skeptical of people who say that they've spotted the next game changer or the killer app or whatever. And as I suggested, we're right to be skeptical of that. But this leaves us in a peculiar place. We're suspicious of mere trends. We're quite possibly overwhelmed not just by information, but by the choices that confront us. So that's as dark as I want to get. I do want to say that I believe that there has been a real change. And I think that it's come to us the old-fashioned way, that we've earned it. I don't want to say, some of you who know me know that I'm fond of quoting Emerson, the years teach much that the days never know. One of the things the years have taught me is that I get fonder of that the older I get. So I have my own kind of skepticism about that sort of wisdom. But I do want to say, I even insist, and then let's the keynote speaker bear me out, that we know more. We actually know more. We know more largely because of people like Susan Graycheck, EDUCAUSE's Vice President for Data Analytics and Research, who knows how not only to answer the important questions, but to frame them in the first place so that we can bring real data and real empirical knowledge to bear on them. And that's enormously important, that we're not just focusing on mere trends and people's opinions and preferences and what's hot and what's not, but we're looking at what works and how we know. When I talked to Susan a couple months ago, I was granted a look at the then embargoed list of the top 10 issues in IT that EDUCAUSE publishes annually. And I realized as I was looking at it that almost everybody, especially everybody here, would agree, yeah, those are the top 10 issues. Those are the issues. The question, of course, is what to do about them. And so I was glad then, and I'm gladder now, that we have Susan here, to our keynote speaker, to help inform us about give us the information, the data we need to gauge the challenges ahead of us, the prospects ahead of us, and how to shape our own understanding and behavior in what I think and hope is really a kind of moving forward. And so I am very glad to ask you to join me in welcoming our keynote speaker for this afternoon, Dr. Susan Graychuk.
Thank you so much. Thank you, George, and thank you all for having me here. It really is a pleasure to be here, to be able to talk with you about the research that we do at EDUCAUSE, and to be able to give you a special preview of the top 10 IT issues in higher education. I'm going to show you the top 10 right now so that you can kind of get your eye full of them, if you'd like. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to walk you through the themes that we were able to discern as we looked at these top 10 IT issues. The issues, probably the reason that they resonated with George is that they are selected by a representative panel of members, leaders in IT and higher education who meet several times a year, and each time they do, they discuss the answers to the question, what is the most important strategic IT-related issue facing your institution at this time? Once a year, they look forward and they predict what they believe will be the top 10 IT-related issues facing higher education in the year to come. So, as I said, we identified 3 themes that are related to these top 10 IT issues, and we call them divest, reinvest, and differentiate. And the point is that we are all in higher education recognizing that technology has matured to the point where we really are able to use it as a strategic differentiator. So institutions that really want to focus on creating a good, strong liberal arts education can use technology to be able to achieve that mission. Distance institutions can obviously use technology for distance learning. Residential institutions, though, can use technology to enrich and deepen learning. Technology can also be used for analytics and to help improve the information that students get about their progress, about their degree choices, to help improve their success. I'm going to be talking a little bit about all these issues, but in order to differentiate with technology, first we need to lay the groundwork, because what none of us can do in higher education right now is we can't afford to just spend more on IT, just throw more money at it. We're all really being pinched and looking to save and save and save. So how do we create the bandwidth? How do we make the room to be able to use technology in creative and really strategic ways? We do that, the panel told us, by divesting. Divesting is in many ways moving to the cloud and taking those basic infrastructure services that we've all come to know and love and run at our institutions. And full disclosure, I spent 27 years at a university myself as an IT practitioner. So I've walked in your shoes. I've run help desks, I've run IT support, run planning and communications, and all kinds of other things. So I know what a lot of this is about. But right now we can't afford to all be running our own infrastructure in our own ways. And so a lot of it's about divesting. It's also about divesting ourselves of our own special processes. For years, around the turn of this century, there was a great movement to ERPs. And people would come in, they'd have the ERP vendor come in, and the ERP vendor would say, here's what our financial and HR system can do. And the institution would say, well, you've got to change it because that's not how we do things. And that was the right strategy at the time. Everybody did it. But now people are recognizing more and more that if we really do want to be cost effective with IT, because every time you customize things, it carries a burden that lasts for the entire lifetime of that application, doesn't it? So if you want to be cost effective with IT, it's time to adapt business processes to the solutions as much as possible, and only customize where it will really, truly add significant value. Another way that we are divesting is divesting ourselves of many different local versions of institutional data and trying to bring our data together so that we have one defined source. How many ways are there to count the number of faculty at CUNY? Maybe as many ways as there are people in this room. Students and things like that. We have so many different counts and they all make sense in their little environment, but coming up with a definitive count can be challenging, and that's just one of many, many data challenges that we face. Reinvest. In order to be able to move into this wonderful new world, there are going to be a lot of changes that are going to affect the IT organization, aren't there? As you know, I just said, let's move a lot of the infrastructure to the cloud. And if any of you are sitting here running that infrastructure, you may be thinking, what's going to happen to me and my job? And also if you're thinking, well, how do we move toward analytics? How do we really invest in teaching and learning, instructional technology? Well, there's all kinds of new roles that are needed as well, new organizational structures. So it's time to really reinvest in our staff, in our IT organizations, to prepare it for the future. The other big area of reinvestment was, if you looked at those top 10 issues, the number one issue, information security. Information security just is the curse that keeps on cursing. And it's not getting any easier, is it, by any means? So that's another area where, again, we have to reinvest. And then differentiate. So let me tell you a little bit about strategic differentiation. This is a slide this is a model created by Neil Nicolaisen, and he published it. I think it was he created originally back in 2009. But the notion of this is to think about the IT organization, think about the services that you provide, and to use that to understand the degree to which and how you will invest in and manage those services. So really 2 dimensions. It's a classic 2x2. How mission critical is that service? And then to what extent do you really need to specialize in that service and adapt it to your particular mission and culture? And once you've identified those 2x2, there are 4 different things to think about with services and 4 different places to look at them. But really what you want to do is you want to, let's see if I can find, focus on the differentiating. High market differentiation, high mission critical. And the 2 primary issues in the top 10 IT issues that really fit into this that I'm going to talk to you about are analytics and educational technology. And you should never have more than 2 or 3 in that quadrant. So if you start to think about your services and you have 15, you need to give it a fresh look, because you just can't afford to specialize in that many things. Now I'm going to show you a first little bit of data today. One of the things that we do is we ask institutions to what extent various IT trends are exerting a major influence over their IT strategy, or will. So I said I'm going to talk about e-learning and analytics. What we do is we group those trends into basically roughly 4 different groups, from limited impact. They're only really influencing strategy significantly at 20% or fewer of institutions, all the way up to most influential at 60% or more. And in e-learning and analytics, there is one trend that's most influential, and that's data-driven decision making. There are several that are kind of creeping up there and starting to exert an influence in about half of institutions: enterprise data management, data integration, so these data issues, but then issues around instructional technology, active classroom design, flipped classroom, and evaluation of technology-based instruction. And that's going to be important. Remember the evaluation, because we're going to come back to that. Personalized learning is a little bit lower, and then limited impact, Internet of Things. Why Internet of Things with analytics? Because the big thing about Internet of Things is that it supplies you with enormous amounts of data that you can then apply analytics to in some creative ways. We're still trying to figure that out in higher education. Relevant trends in running IT, and I'll just quickly go to these: moving to the cloud, just the increasing complexity of everything, which is why divesting is helpful. And then the burden of historical services. Those are really the three big ones. And then, the other aspects of how you divest. These are the trends that are taking hold. And then a whole bunch of ways to manage new services are trends that we describe as worth understanding, or in about 20 to 40% of institutions. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to see if we have time for a whirlwind tour of half of the top 10 IT issues. First, we're going to focus on e-learning. I'm going to talk about a couple issues related to that, start with e-learning in general, and then move into the issues related to faculty and supporting faculty. Then we're going to take a look at analytics and talk about analytics in general, and then student success technologies. So the issue with e-learning, and you'll be able to read more about this in the article in EDUCAUSE Review that will be published next month. It's December already in EDUCAUSE Review. But the issue is, how do you create scale and well-resourced e-learning services? How do you really do something and consider this an operational, foundational production set of services that you can offer? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we know, the data that we have. And if you think about e-learning, when we did our e-learning study, we said, what are the benefits of e-learning? And we created a word cloud after running some focus groups. And you can see every institution has different focuses. So you really need to think about what is the benefit of e-learning for your mission, for your culture. And so for some institutions, it's just more flexibility in teaching. For some, it's to reach more students. And for many, it's to improve pedagogy and course instruction. E-learning is a major interest area for the institution in almost 2/3 of institutions, and only 2% are not looking at it at all. That 2% tends to be clustered in bachelor's, private bachelor's mostly, institutions. And if you look, the red bar is we aren't doing it, the yellow is 1 or 2, and then the green bars are we're providing e-learning of some form or other in quite a number of our classes too, as many as all. The reason institutions don't invest in e-learning, when they don't make investments, it's really either the reality or the perception that faculty and students have no interest in e-learning. And that then contributes, I think, to leadership lack of interest, which is the #1 issue. But sometimes leadership is just not interested at all because they might be focused in a different direction. And so there's that as well. But you can see lack of finances and lack of technology fall behind that basic lack of interest. And that's the most important thing, right? If your faculty and students aren't going to be into this, then it's not worth investing in at the time. So what are the concerns about e-learning? Look, technological know-how of faculty is the #1 concern. And in fact, that's the next IT issue that we're going to talk about when we unpack this. The thing that was interesting when we did this survey, one of the questions that we asked, to look at the bottom one, really wanted to know the extent to which there was a cultural resistance in higher education to e-learning, a thought that e-learning would transform higher education for the worse. And certainly there is a minority, a reasonably sizable minority, but it's 1 in 4. So it's not a preponderance of folks who are worried about that. Now, when you look at e-learning, it can mean so many things. So we asked students, we do an annual survey of undergraduate students in technology, and we said to them, what do you want more of? And you can see they want more lecture capture, free web-based content. They want more access and better use of the learning management system beyond just kind of static uses. A lot of them want games and gamification. They want more collaborative tools that they can use to be able to learn in collaboration with other students and faculty members. And then e-textbooks and electronic student portfolios is kind of the redheaded stepchild, I think, of e-learning services we're seeing over and over. Students are not too interested in that. So then we asked faculty, because we also do a study of faculty and information technology, and we say, which of these technologies, if you had more training in, do you think would make you a better instructor? And look, it really aligns, doesn't it? And so then we looked at institutions to find out which of these technologies they're actually offering. And this is where you see some misalignment. So, particularly strong in free web-based content and games and gamification. So, that's a gap or that's an opportunity. This is the first of, I think, 3 maturity indices that I'm going to show you. This is something that EDUCAUSE has been doing a lot of research in. And what we're doing is we are assessing the readiness and the capability of institutions to be able to provide and deliver technology services. And we actually have a total of 8 maturity indices that we're going to be releasing as a beta in January to enable institutions to be able to benchmark their own maturity and compare them with peer institutions, see where they stand, get recommendations for how to improve. Each maturity index is developed with a combination of expert advice who we get together with, maybe people like George, or colleagues who help us really think through what are the capabilities that are important in developing e-learning. And then we collect the data, we do some statistical testing to group those data into dimensions, and then we assess where we are. So overall, maturity is kind of in the middle of the scale. So bottom line, again, really align e-learning to your institutional culture and strategy. Don't let your e-learning plans be the tail that wags the dog. So, optimizing educational technology, and how do you collaborate with faculty and academic leadership to understand the technologies that they really need, that are most important to help them get there, and also understand the right level of technology to use, because this is not about evangelizing about technology. This is about advancing higher education through the use of technology. So let's see what we know. What motivates faculty to incorporate technology into their teaching and learning? When we asked faculty that in our survey for the 2nd year in a row, we found across the board, it doesn't matter what institutional type, they said clear evidence that technology would actually benefit students. That's what will motivate them. And it wasn't, they're also motivated by making sure that the technology is reliable, confidence that it will work the way planned. I'm very thrilled that I'm able to give this talk and stand here at the podium and know my talk is working and my AV is working, and faculty need that same degree of confidence in all the ways they use technology. And better understanding for how to apply these technologies. And then a bunch of them said actual release time so that they could focus on this. Because it's a non-trivial thing to incorporate technology into your teaching. Whoops, sorry. What motivates faculty? And so they said clear evidence that technology will improve teaching and learning. And so then we asked, to what extent is technology-based instructional innovations, back to that trend diagram, to what extent is it really a major part of IT strategy at the institution? And we found in 44%, so a little over 4 in 10 institutions, it's a major part, and a minor influence in only about 1/3 of institutions. So there's room for growth there. Students' perceptions are that they kind of see there's room for growth in how faculty use technology. They're sort of giving middling ratings to how their faculty use technology. And then this is back to that chart. This is the list of technologies, again, that faculty say would make them more effective teachers. Just so that you know, I'll make sure that you can get access to this presentation. So that you can refer to it later. So bottom line, really define and understand what are the pedagogical priorities. IT leaders need to, the role IT leaders can play is to deliver really solid, reliable services, but also to have the conversations with academic leaders to help raise their awareness of what the possibilities are, to collaborate with interested faculty on some demonstration projects and alike. And of course, it's all for students to learn. That's the focus. All right, now let's switch gears and let's talk about analytics a little bit. The issue number 7 with analytics is making sure that we are actually implementing business intelligence and analytics to be able to improve institutional priorities and outcomes. Here's a quote from, and all of these quotes are from the panel members, from the IT Issues panel members. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the status of analytics in higher education, because there's been a lot of hype about analytics, hasn't there? My goodness, it's just so exciting, and people have been talking about it for several years now. So we must be making incredible progress. I apologize for this slide. I pulled it down. It was a slide in progress. There's a typo in it. And actually the orange text, learning analytics, belongs with the blue circle. But it shows you're getting stuff that's still baking in the oven, and for better and worse. But you see, when we studied analytics this past year, we asked institutions, what are your major priorities with learning analytics? What are your major priorities with institutional analytics? And they wisely told us, well, there's a lot of overlap between those two. Student success, analytics for student success is really kind of a little bit of both, for example. And you can see that of the top priorities in each area, 2 are shared, improving retention, and then demonstrating the value of higher education, because we're all under the gun to demonstrate that higher education is worthwhile, which I didn't think we had to demonstrate, but we do. And so using analytics to be able to do that. So, analytics in higher education. It's valuable, it's useful, it's important, and we're not there yet, by any means. Analytics is a priority in a number of institutions. For better or worse, learning analytics is a lower priority. It's not a major institutional priority in as many institutions as institutional analytics, but it's a priority. But we have so far to go. You can all read everything in this slide, can't you? Right? No. What I really wanted to show you in this slide is, see the teal? You don't see much of it, do you? The teal bars are triggering proactive responses. So that's actually putting the data that you get from analytics to work. And that's that's one of the things you want to do with analytics. The light tan are making projections, and these are all a bunch of different uses of data: faculty research performance, facilities, student learning, central IT advancement, enrollment management. So applying analytics to all these different parts of the institution. And you can see we're still kind of either not doing it at all, or boy, how familiar are you with this? We collect the data, but we don't actually use it, right? And we all do that. So here's another maturity index. This is our analytics maturity index. This was the first maturity index that we created in our 2012 study of analytics in higher education. And you can see overall higher education in 2012 was a 3.2. We identified 6 dimensions of analytics then. Well, we reran and recollected the data this year. You want to see how much progress we've made? 3.4. How about that? Not much, is it? There's a little bit different dimensions because people's understanding and practice in analytics has changed a little bit, but we really haven't made much progress in the last couple of years. Overall, if you divide all the institutions, and this is based on about 550 colleges and universities, you can see most, 2/3, are kind of falling in the middle. They're at that level 3 on the analytics scale. Only a teeny handful could be described excellent, and only a small group could even be described as strong. So what's holding us back? How do we make progress with analytics? Well, a big part of making progress with analytics is having sufficient numbers of staff to support it, but also back to that reinvest theme that I talked to you about, having the right roles and the right people. And there's a very, very strong need for a lot more people who really know and can apply data. And I would just say that, don't we have a wonderful workforce here at our institutions, the students who we can bring in? Just as years ago, didn't we bring in students to staff the IT organization? Well, I think that there are a lot of opportunities to give our students jobs and also to help advance the institution through some of these roles. So the big concerns about analytics really are, we asked about a whole bunch of concerns, and I'll show them to you one by one, or group by group, I'm sorry. But these are the 6 biggest concerns. And the very, very biggest concern is affordability. How are we going to be able to afford to do analytics when we've been asked to cut our budget, or at best, keep our budget level? And analytics is a non-trivial investment. The other concern is simply about keeping pace. There is at least a perception, and certainly we all know about institutions in the news like Arizona State University that are doing great things with analytics, or Montgomery County Community College that's also doing a lot of interesting things. So how are we going to keep pace? How are we going to keep up? A lot of things around data, and will we be able to use the data, misuse it? I think that's an important concern. And I think that we're going to find out more and more that our data are not as good as we want, that our predictive models are not 100% predictive. And even if they're 98% predictive, do you want to be in that 2%? So I think that we're going to find more about that, and possible regulations. A whole bunch of other concerns that are a little bit less. You can see a couple of things. Student, faculty, and staff privacy rights are a little bit lower on this list right now. And I think, again, as we start to apply the data, make decisions with them, we will probably see that going up more. And then another means of running higher education, like a business, low concern. And the inability to measure higher education is also not a big concern, which I thought was interesting. All right, really quickly on technologies, there's a whole bunch of technologies that you want to consider putting in place in order to be able to do analytics at your institution. Every year we also ask institutions to tell us the amount of attention they plan to be paying to technologies that are not yet widespread, but that there's a lot of talk and interest in. And from their intentions, we're able to make projections about the extent to which these technologies will grow and become more widespread in higher education. The technology that we think is growing the fastest and will become the most widespread within the next 5 years are BI and reporting dashboards. Then there's a couple of other administrative and business performance analytics and learning analytics for degree advising that we think will probably be deployed in around half of institutions within the next 5 years. And then the rest of technologies we think will only be in 20 to 40% of institutions over the next 5 years. So move from what we're calling experimental and then up the ladder in that respect. Oops, sorry. So bottom line, don't start with the data, start with the decisions that you need to make. And it's amazing how many smart people don't start with the decisions. They start with the data and they go, well, what are we going to do with all these data that we have? But really, think about the decisions you want to make with analytics and start in a focused way with the ones that are most important. because you can't boil the ocean. It will just overwhelm you, and your project will be doomed to fail. You saw that whole list of all the different ways in which at the institution you can apply analytics. What's the most important one for you? Now, the last issue I'm going to talk about very quickly are student success technologies. And how do you use analytics, how do you use technology to improve student outcomes? A little bit of note about proprietary vendor algorithms with analytics, and that is something for you to think about as you think about investing in an analytics solution. We're all focused on the data, and we're all focused on the value of our data. There's tremendous value in the models that are created from those data. And if we are buying a proprietary analytics solution, putting our data in that proprietary analytics solution, using a model that we don't really understand, think about what happens when that vendor gets bought out or goes out of business, because it happens, and it is happening. Or if you're not satisfied, if you want to choose a solution, well, you don't get to take that model with you. And so what are you going to do about that? So that's something really to think about. Okay, what we know. We've really, at EDUCAUSE, we've been studying 4 different aspects of student success technology services, because that's a mouthful, isn't it? So really getting down to brass tacks, it's helping students plan their education. What am I going to major in? What is my focus area? Where do I want to go with this? Then helping them track the progress toward their degrees, providing counseling and advising with analytics, and then giving students, faculty, and advisors early alerts so that they can understand when things may be going wrong and how they may intervene quickly and act quickly to be able to change things and improve. Well, one of the things we know is students and faculty, for the most part, are not a barrier to implementing student success technologies. Students are keenly interested in this, as long as it stays away from their personal lives. Students are very, very sophisticated about how they separate their personal uses of information technology and their social persona, and how they really engage in what is their professional persona and their professional endeavor. And faculty are interested in this as well. So what is success? What do we really need to do? What we're finding that is most important with success is IPASS is the acronym that we use for Integrated Planning and Advising Services. So that's what IPASS means here. But think about all the different communities that have to come together and collaborate to make this happen. And you can see that it's going to require, and does require, a lot of collaboration. So that's a big success factor. The biggest barriers are not having enough staff skills, not having the infrastructure to be able to implement these. Less of a barrier right now is making sure that the specific stakeholders are really involved in these efforts. And again, here is a maturity index that we've developed to be able to track higher education's progress and the dimensions involved with student success technologies. And if you've been looking at these maturity indices, you'll probably see some common themes, that there is very often a leadership theme. There's very often a process theme and a policy theme or dimension. There's a couple specific ones related to student success, analytics for student success, and making sure that you've got the right advising and student support services. Then the baseline information systems, and having good collaboration and involvement overall. So, bottom line, it's really time to start thinking about this. And even if you choose not to do anything about this, make sure it's a conscious choice rather than a choice that just happened to you. And both students and faculty are key stakeholders, as are your student services or student success office, whatever you may call it. But really, start to think about making plans. I'm sorry. Here are the top 10 issues again. And now we've got a few minutes. I know that we have a hard stop at 4:30 for the awards ceremony. Is that right? But I wanted to make sure that I left plenty of time for questions. So, anybody have any questions for me? Or should I call in individual members of the audience? Yes. He told me I'd be inundated.
You mentioned that you were going to make sure we got the deck. Will you be updating it for those few little things that need to be fixed?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Other questions? Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll remember to repeat the question. The question was, I'll be providing the deck. Will I make sure to update the little glitches to make sure that you've got a clean deck? Yes, I will. Yeah. Yes?
You didn't go into details about information security. Can you give us a sense of what the top issues were that institutions felt they needed to address?
Yeah, the top issues that institutions really need to address at this point are moving from a strategy that is device focused to a strategy that is focused on protecting the data wherever they may reside. That's one thing. Another thing that institutions are really needing to focus on, and the big sort of reorientation is, we've been thinking very often about, how do I prevent a breach? How do I make sure that a breach never ever happens? And certainly we need to do that still. But in addition to that, what we really need to focus on is, how will we respond when a breach happens? So to recognize that breaches are really inevitable, and to make sure that you do have business continuity plans, breach recovery plans, and that you rehearse them and keep them up to date. You're welcome. Yes?
Were there any surprises as you did the research?
So for me, were there any surprises as we did the research? I think I was really surprised information security was number one. Quite frankly, I looked at the data about halfway through data collection, and it was number one then. And I thought, wow, that's surprising, but I'm sure it won't last. And I think that was the biggest surprise. The other thing that has been very interesting to me, because I've been running this panel and doing this research to identify the top 10 IT issues for several years now. And it has been so interesting to see the cadence of change happening. So 3-4 years ago, it was all about, people were saying, wow, things are changing. What are we going to make of this change? And last year, we were really talking about how everything is connected, and how you kind of think about how all these things are connected. And we were kind of getting one step closer to this. But this year, I think what was in some ways surprising to me, given how quickly this has all evolved, is people are just doing it. You know, they are focusing on these changes. And certain types of institutions are moving very, very aggressively to divest themselves of their homegrown, home-run infrastructure, and just moving, adopting a cloud-first strategy, moving to adopt analytics. We're just changing on all fronts. And having been in higher education for longer than I'd like to admit, I'm old. I know how averse we are to change. In fact, there was a keynote speaker at the Canadian Association of University and Business Officers, I think this past summer, and he was kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of poking at us in higher education a little bit, and saying, this harkens back to, George, your introduction, saying, higher education's motto really should be progress without change. Well, we're changing now. So how do we do change and progress? So, yes?
Can you give us some examples of some institutions that are tackling these top 10 IT issues, so we can look towards them as perhaps a model of success?
What we're finding is We're finding that the private doctoral institutions are the ones that are focusing most aggressively on adopting all of these different technologies. Moving to the cloud, investing in analytics, investing in student success and teaching and learning. And, you know, part of it is that they are more, you know, lavishly resourced. And I also think that they have a very strong history of having a lot of distributed IT. And the other thing that some of our data show is that central IT, and I was in central IT for years, so I'm not dissing central IT, but central IT is really burdened with running the IT services of the institution. And that means it's challenged very often to innovate. Because you know, you have to have innovation and bring in all the stakeholders, you have to have the time, you have to have the business case for it that, you know, the entire university will buy into. But where we are finding innovation happens is in those distributed IT areas, you know, the business school, the law school, whatever. So I would look at those, but we're also finding public doctoral institutions are, I think they're moving most aggressively to take a look at how they can become more efficient in their operations and in analytics. Community colleges are focusing a lot, and they're actually leaders in instructional technology. So, yes?
If the top interest of the teaching faculty is to have concrete evidence that interventions involving technology are going to benefit the students, how do the institutions make that case to the teaching faculty beyond the mere anecdotes?
Right. The way they make that case is partly designing and implementing evaluations of technology at the institution. So working with, there's always some faculty at your institution who are really interested in using technology and would like to be able to work with you in evaluating what's happening. So that you can, if you can make a local case, that can really strengthen the case that you make. But there's a good strong body of literature on the efficacy of technology or lack thereof related to instructional innovation. Another arm of EDUCAUSE, the EDUCAUSE Learning Initiative, has a focus called Seeking Evidence of Impact that really works with institutions both to publish and document the work that they've done to provide evidence of the impact of technology, and also to be able to work with institutions who want to be able to do research and gather evidence for the impact of technology, but maybe don't know how to get started. So, yes?
On number 4, what kinds of issues are hiring and retention being raised?
The two big issues in hiring and retention are, number one, retaining IT staff as the job market, and particularly the IT job market, is really heating up, making the case for this is a great place to work. But the other thing that is happening that our panel members told us over and over again is that higher education is not the same place to work at that it used to be. You know, you used to be able to hire staff and say, well, you get a lot of time off, and maybe there's a tuition reimbursement benefit, and things are really slow in the summer, so that's when you can, you know, kind of focus on some of these innovation activities and the like. And your office and your area is going to be right embedded in the middle of campus so that you'll have a lot of interaction with students and faculty members. Maybe you'll be able to teach. So IT folks really felt as if they were part of the academic mission of the institution. I had a faculty appointment where I worked, and I was able to teach courses, and that was just, it was wonderful to feel part of the institution. That's not happening as much as IT has become, for better and worse, professionalized. Well, now we've got to compete with all the other companies that are hiring IT workers. So that's a big thing. But then the other thing is, as I mentioned several times in the talk, there are new roles and new jobs that are cropping up in higher education, in IT. And how do you find the talent to do that? When maybe there are new jobs that you're not even sure how you're going to hire, how you would supervise those people, because it's maybe not the expertise of any a real strong existing expertise. But again, I would really recommend that institutions look inside and look to themselves. When I started in IT, I got my PhD in research psychology, and I had my choice of 3 jobs. I could have gone to be an assistant professor at Notre Dame University. I could have become a research analyst at Consumers Union, or I could have worked at the Computer Center at Yale, which is where I got my PhD. And I picked the 3rd job because it was such a cool place to work, and I really liked it, and I thought it was fun, and I liked being a quote-unquote hired gun. So that's where I went. And I was working with all kinds of PhDs who went on to lead in IBM and become a leader at the Mellon Foundation, go on to do to work at Amazon, and darn it, I missed my chance. I could have gone to work at Amazon in year 0 just about, but that's okay. But a lot. They went to really interesting places. It was a cool place to work, and they sold me on that career path. It's worked out very well for me. I think we have an opportunity once again to sell our students in the area of analytics, particularly, on this as a cool, dynamic, exciting, and noble place to work. So, how are we doing for time? Oh, 1 more minute? One last question? Anybody want to have one last question? Or do you want, yes?
Can you elaborate on number 2, please?
Yes, number 2 is all about how we really pick the right level of technology to deploy at our institution. It's not about just saying we're going to completely move all of our teaching and learning online. We're going to move to MOOCs, which people have kind of walked away from anyway. It's all going to become online. It's all in with technology. It's not that necessarily, unless that fits the institutional culture. It's really about bringing together all the key stakeholders and leaders, faculty, academic leadership, administrative leadership, students, and IT leaders to create a strategy for educational technology at the institution. So, well, thank you so very, very much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Since its inception, at the request actually of Alan, who I first met when he was commissioner of Do It for New York City. He came over here and said, would you guys come over and help us do the same thing here? So he and Brian have had us here and working with George Audi for the 14 years this program has gone on. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage the Executive Vice Chancellor of CUNY, Mr. Alan Dobrin. Please give him a round of applause.
For anybody who's leaving, just leave your card in the back. We're taking names. So I came up here originally. I've got a very nice speech to talk about trends in technology and where we're going at CUNY. But I didn't realize it would be such a big audience. So I've decided to talk about something I enjoy talking about much more. Me. So those of you who know me know that the only character I've ever identified with is in a movie called Catch Me If You Can. It's the Leo DiCaprio character where he's an imposter. So that's pretty much been my career. And when I came to CUNY, Matt Goldstein looked at my resume and said, will you stay 3 years? I said, I'll promise you 2. I said, I don't usually stay anywhere 3. And one of the things when I came, as Alan said, is we put this conference together. So I've now been here for 14 years. Real surprise. So when I was sitting out there, I thought a little bit about why would that be? Because this is really the only thing I do that I've done 14 times, is this conference. The only thing in my life I've done 14 times. So, a couple of things. One, I think we have the best mission in the world. It is impossible to have a better mission than we do. I'm a first-generation American. I'm a graduate of this university. I know for me the choice wasn't Queens College or X. The choice was Queens College or not go to college. That was the choice. Now, not only is the best mission in the world, I think it's recognized that way. I only read 2 periodicals anymore. It's all I have time for. I read The Economist and I read Bicycling Magazine. Okay. And The Economist did a feature story on CUNY. And the title of the story was The Return of the American Dream Machine, the turnaround of CUNY. And that's what CUNY is. It's the American Dream Machine. And we're not doing it for 50 people. So everybody thinks of Boston as America's college town. Boston has over 600,000 people. Okay? We have 275,000 degree-seeking students. We have 300,000 continuing ed and certificate students. And we have 50,000 employees. CUNY alone has more people every day than Boston has people, let alone college students. So what all of you do really matters. It really affects a lot of lives. It changes the city. We have almost 1.2 million CUNY graduates just in the metropolitan area. So you can't touch a New York family who either is not a student now, or their parents were students, or their grandparents were students. Everybody in the city is involved with CUNY. It's a great mission. Second, and even more personally, I was always, look, I'm having a great career. I'm not complaining at all. But I was always kind of jealous of people who kind of spent a long time in an agency, really got to know people, could say, how's your kids doing? How's your grandchildren doing? I never had that because I was like kind of a hired gun. But I'm here 14 years. So many of you in this room have really become friends of mine, and I want to, thank you for that. And third is, when you work, I was Commissioner of Technology, if you know, Commissioner of Youth Service, so a lot of things. But generally you got 40 or 50 really smart people, with graduate degrees, and you have real conversations with them. Well, we got about 35,000 people like that. At CUNY, the entry-level workers have PhDs, they've written 3 books and 30 articles. So it's just great to be around really smart people, and many of them in this room. So, which kind of leads me to why we're here at this moment. So among all of those really smart people, some people this year were extra smart, and we want to take the opportunity to recognize them. And, at the risk of letting you know how boring I really am, I spend, all of my free time reading biographies about leaders. I mean, probably shocking that anybody could be that boring, but that's what I do. And I'm more and more convinced over the years that really a lot of the change in history, what it's about is the technology. We think it's all this other stuff, but it's really about the technology leading the change. And I think it's been that way since kind of the beginning of time. But, a little bit, not 100% agreeing with George, which is rare for me, I think something's really new. And I think Moore's Law kind of creates it. And what's really new is the speed of change. Not that there is change, but the speed of change. Because of Moore's Law, it's just happening quicker. And it creates all kinds of problems because everyone's frightened about it. Nobody quite understands it. There's, Brian and myself were in charge of Y2K for the city. And I read an article and said the reason people are so frightened is they realize no one understands all the technology anymore. It's kind of got a life of its own. So, we're tasked with this incredibly important mission, this technology which kind of nobody understands fully anymore, And we got to marry all that together in an environment, as I explained to the president of Oracle, where, I said, I know you think you have good software. Let me try to explain who the faculty is. These are people, rightly, who are very comfortable criticizing Shakespeare and Einstein, so they're going to be pretty comfortable criticizing your software. So, we live in a world, we're all kind of skeptical and critical, and that's kind of what universities do anyway. So it's not easy being the IT person. So with that said, I need to thank Brian Cohn. I mean, anyone knows my management style. It's very simple. I have ideas, and then I find some really smart person to do it, so I found Brian. Brian's been with me for many years, so Brian's adopting my management style, and he found George. And George, finally, who I'm very proud of, because I think he's getting it, he found Alan Cox, who actually puts this stuff together. So that being said, I want to thank all of them, but I want to stop there because I'm going down in a bad direction now, which is talking about other people. So that's not what I came up here to do. But that said, George can come up, Alan, Brian, and we really want to, thank the people who are kind of the best this year, and recognize them on behalf of the university. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Like Alan, he's just finished his 14th year. I get to finish mine in about 3 weeks. But I'll remember a story that I guess it was the first 3 or 4 months that we were here, and there was a search for they were searching for a chancellor for the New York City School Board of Education. And Alan's name got surfaced as a potential candidate. And I remember sitting around a table at his staff meeting, and he points everyone around his table, and he started saying, I know I'm not going to get the job, or I'm not really interested in the job, but just in case, if I did get the job, how many of you would go with me? And he pointed to the first person, they said, I'll go. And he pointed to the second person, he said, I'll go. And he pointed it to me, and I said, I'm not going. And he looked at me, he says, what? I said, no. I said, I just got here. I really want to do something. I want to make a difference. I like this place. He says, well, won't you even lie to me? I said, no, I won't lie to you. I'm not going. So I'm glad you stayed. So what I love about this conference, and his 14 years of doing it, as Alan said, is that George does all the work, and then Alan Cox does all the work. But the best part about this is that it doesn't really have to be a lot of work, because the participants just register, and there's hundreds of you. This is the largest single conference in this university that brings over 1,000 people together during the course of a day and a half. That's huge. And not only is it huge on the participants, but we have to sort of never fight to get the presentations. They want to come. They want to present. They want to tell you their story. They want to show you what they did. They want to talk to you about their ideas and their concepts. And we don't have to ask them or beg them. They just come. And it's a great opportunity for us to learn, and it's a great opportunity for us to share. And then when I walk around and I meet the vendors who obviously support the conference and who present their technologies, I always ask them the same question: how do you like the conference? And every year it's the same. This one's better than last year. The people this year are better than last year. The presentations are better this year than they were last year. So we're always improving, and we're not trying very hard to improve. It just happens naturally. So that's a wonderful thing. So this is our 3rd annual award ceremony, and it gives us a chance really to sort of recognize what you do in the colleges and share your successes and your ideas and your value add that you do for your college and your campuses with others. And it's probably to me, has become, next to the conference itself and bringing everyone together, one of the most exciting parts of my job. We have nominations always in 3 areas: innovation, collaboration. We look for a nomination in outstanding project that supports students, faculty, and staff, or students, faculty, or staff, or students, or faculty, or staff. And then we do a service award. And the service award really is meant to recognize a person out there in every college who has done just a step more than what they're expected to do, and be recognized for their role in delivering technology or supporting technology on the campus. And I think that's, those are the heroes. You're all the heroes of what we do on a day-to-day basis. You're the ones who help give technology a good name. We received many nominations, as we do every year. They span from internal technology tools that support what we do and make our job better or easier or make us more productive. We get nominations that deal with customer service, everything from improving this year parking, how we manage parking, to how we deal with password management. I'm still looking for the silver bullet on how I can deal with password management. I can't tell you how many times I've reset my CUNY First password in the last 3 days. We looked at projects that were dealing with how do we support students and faculty, and quite frankly, the most important part of our mission here in the university is teaching and learning. So we've had some great nominations, and as much as I would like to say that we should have awards for every one of the nominations, it wouldn't be an award ceremony if we were giving awards out to everyone. So we have to have some winners. But let me first start by saying that all of the nominations, and they're all recognized in the brochure that you have, they're all winners. All right? But we do have 3 specific winners in the categories that I talked about, and then we have obviously a winner for every campus that has identified a service person. So we're going to get started with that in just a second. Before I conclude with my comments, I do want to recognize Alan and his commitment to technology in this university and his support for everything we do. Alan, I'd like to just point out that top 10 list, as I said to you when we were sitting down, for the folks in the audience, we're doing them all. We validated that we are all doing the right things, because there was not one thing on that list that we haven't been focusing on either this year or over the last 14 years. So I think we got it. And we couldn't have been able to achieve this or even get to this point if it wasn't for the support of Alan and his position as the Executive Vice Chancellor. Finally, I'd like to say that today's award ceremony requires the necessary participation from judges. So I'd like to thank our judges who participated this year. From the Bronx Community College, the Chief Technology Officer, Loic Adjussu. From Lehman College, the Vice President and Chief Information Officer, Ron Bergman. From Baruch, Vice President for Information Services, Arthur Downing. From Hometown, John Jay, the CIO, Joe Laub. And from the Borough of Manhattan Community College, Joe Spadero, who's the Vice President for Information Technology. And from Gutman Community College, the CIO, John Stroud. These people made this a success. They had to read through all of these nominations, they had to dedicate their time, and they had to do their jobs too. So I want to thank them all for being a part of this. Their dedication is greatly appreciated. Finally, I'd like to say that I want to thank those who made this conference and this award ceremony a success from behind the scenes. The people who don't necessarily always get the plaques or the recognition, but without them, we could not do that. And from John Jay, I'd like to recognize Joe Laub, Sherry Gibson, Rabina Shafi, and Joshua Redfern of John Jay. And then from CIS, I'd like to recognize, I gotta find my notes, Tripti Batra, Ramon Rodriguez, Norma Calderon, MD Token, and he couldn't be here today, Ramesh Ganeshram, for their work on this project, on this effort today. And then finally, before we get started, just a note to the winners: when we call your name, please come up. We'll hand you your award. We'll ask you to stop for a moment, take a picture, and then proceed back down to your seat. And at the end of the ceremony, they're going to ask all of the awardees to come back up and take a group shot so that we have one big picture of everyone. So with that, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to turn it over to Alan Cox, who will read the nomination. So thank you very much.
All right, and one more person that I would like to thank as we get started and as they remove the wrapping paper, so to speak, from the awards tables is my national conference director, Danny Bell, who's up on stage with us now, who actually took the burden of this off my shoulders this year, worked very closely with George and his team and Brian's team, Ramesh and Tripti and Jan, to do the awards program, to build the website, et cetera. So thank you very much, Danny. Okay, let's get started. The first award of the afternoon is for innovation. The Innovation Award recognizes a project that is especially inventive compared to the use of current technology at a college or at CUNY and introduces an innovative way to conduct business. The winner this year is Brooklyn College for their integrated online communications platform. Brooklyn College needed to leverage technology to simplify and ensure that communications were as focused as possible to eliminate unnecessary messages to students across campus. In order to do this, the school created a suite of email tools that allowed key campus personnel and instructors to easily and effectively batch email students, staff, or faculty based on a variety of selection criteria. These tools have been used to deliver millions of emails to focused target groups, reducing unnecessary email and making each message really count. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Jayati Das, Anatoly Gamailo, Andre Postoyantis, and the other winner, Leonora Kissis, who could not be with us, but let's give them all a round of applause as they come to the stage. And you can all hear this beautiful music, right? Or is it just my ears? Stay there and I'll do the picture. So gather in the middle with Alan and Brian and we'll do the picture. Alan, did you say 1.2 million graduates in the metro area?
That's correct.
So if you think about that, there are less than 1 million residents of the state of Montana, just a little bit over 1 million in Wyoming. There's probably 5 states that don't have as many residents as you have graduates in the CUNY, in the city metro area. That's actually pretty amazing. You know, compared to my humble community of about 500 people. All right. The next award is for the outstanding project serving students, faculty, and/or staff. This award recognizes the outstanding IT project that provides benefits to students, faculty, and/or staff at a college or at CUNY. The winner for this year is Bronx Community College with their Retention Management View and Enrollment Dashboard. Bronx Community College created the Retention Management View, I feel like I'm repeating myself, and Enrollment Dashboard to support 3 of the school's top priorities: advisement, registration, and retention. The dashboard is a set of strategic reporting tools that increases user access to information and results in better use of data. Users focus on work that is necessary, data-driven, and result-based. Through the use of Enrollment Dashboard, comparative analysis is viewed by semester, by month, and by student cohorts. Success coaches now have a tool to partner with the academic departments to focus on practical ways to pinpoint retention indicators to effectively manage their cohort of students. So please join me in welcoming to the stage David Ling, Data Pereira, Dr. Colleen Simpson, and Dr. Colleen Simpson. Either way, it's fine. Congratulations. The next award is the Collaboration Award. This award recognizes the collaborative IT project that provides benefits to students, faculty, and/or staff at a college or at CUNY. The winner for this year is Bronx Community College, Hostess Community College, and Lehman College. The project was optimizing business intelligence to support reverse transfer across the Bronx community colleges. Thanks to this initiative, students who earn course credits at Lehman can transfer them back to their original community college and earn a certificate or associate's degree if they satisfy the requirements. Reverse credit transfer programs allow students to make their education more flexible and mobile. Since the spring of 2014, more than 2,100 students have transferred to Lehman from Bronx Community College and Hostess. From spring 2014 to spring 2015, more than 200 students were reviewed for eligibility to earn their associate's degree. So please welcome from all three colleges, we'll go through them, but first from Bronx Community College, Gracie Campagna, Jonathan Lakay, Neil Phillip, Edwin Roman, Michelle Siegel, Karen Thomas. Our other winner from BCC, Chris Deftemu'u, could not be with us. From Hostess Community College, Felix Cardona, Cynthia Morales Del Brun, and Jose Santana. And from Lehman College, Artie Deschmuck, Richard Finger, Lee Millman, and Yvette Rosario. And I apologize if I just butchered any of those names. I am admittedly a Californian, and we do well in Spanish and English, and that's about as far as we're good at. Right in front, there you go. All right, our last award category for today is one that I consider very important, and it's the Service Award. The Service Award is for individuals who have demonstrated exemplary eye service to the community college during the prior year. Every campus has a winner. We're going to invite them all to the stage. Feel free to clap as they come up. They won't mind, I promise. And then we'll give them a round of applause at the very end. From Baruch College, Deanna Collins. From BMCC, Mohammed M. Chowdhury. From Bronx Community College, Derek Lee. From Brooklyn College, Richard Klein. From LaGuardia Community College, Tony Meises. From CCNY, Marta Shakutnik. From Computing and Information Services, Berlin Francois. From College of Staten Island, Shepardad Vakil. And a fan club. From College of Staten Island, from the CUNY Graduate Center, Randy Edwards. From the School of Journalism, Alistair Wallace. From Hostess, Nazneen Mohammed. From Hunter College, Bill Jones. From the host campus here, John Jay, Raymond Jiggets. From Kingsborough, Filton Weeks. From Lehman College, Stefan Castellano. And I admit that could be Stephen. From Medgar Evers College, Dwayne Dixon. From the New York City College of Technology, Inya Dates. From Queensborough Community College, Ralph Romanelli. From Queens College, Minhan Sung. From the CUNY School of Law, Reuben Caldwell. From the CUNY School of Professional Studies, Chad Hoyshuber. And from York College, Wing Kwan. Yep, so you come right out here. Turn sideways so that your shoulders like that. There you go. All right, they're all on stage. One last round of applause as they're getting set. Overlap and move in. All right, you all might want to just remain on stage because we're going to do the group photo, so there's really no reason to leave. So next year in the innovation category, we're going to look for the photography drone to fly over here and take the pictures for us. So congratulations to all the winners. We do ask that the rest of the winners come back up on stage for a group photo. And then to all of you, thank you for attending, and we look forward to hearing about what great technology projects CUNY will produce in the next year. So thank you for joining us. One last round of applause for all of our winners today and all of the nominees. And if the rest of the winners would come up on stage, the rest of you, this adjourns our program. Thank you for attending.